Now. Alrighty. Hello, everyone, and welcome in to the Wyoming Valley Conference Preview Podcast. I am joined with one of my fellow partners at PA Football News, Jared Samuel. Let's see if I finally got that. I've been practicing because
You
I'm, I'm,
nailed it.
I'm pointing the wrong way to you, but it's backwards on my thing. So how you doing? We are, what are we looking at here? 4 o'clock, so we're 27 hours away from high school football starting. How's it feel? We're back. It's cold. Can you beat it?
Yeah, I love it. This is what we've been waiting for, ever since, you and I were down at Cumberland Valley. And ever since then, and, a little bit of the postseason stuff with guys making all state and all this stuff. But we're just sitting here going, can we get back to games? Can we get back to games? And the funny thing happened this week. We got that chilly, fall-like weather. And I said, oh, it must be high school football. Here we are.
Yes.
Yep, I agree.
It's a great time. I mean, if you're a football fan, this time coming up, you're going to have college football starting, you're going to have NFL starting, high school. I mean, it's just you can't beat it. Those September to December, January, February months, best time of the year in my opinion. It gets cold, not too cold. Leaves are turning. It's a little crispy, and we can't wait. So let's get into it. So this podcast, if you watched last week, is going to be a little bit different than what we had a week ago. That was kind of the pilot episode, get everything going. This podcast will be the same, what we're going to do this week, next week, and on throughout. We'll talk a little bit about the week prior. Well, there's nothing to talk about the week prior. And we will break down all of these games and give score predictions, and then we will keep our standings throughout the season on a Google sheet, a Google whatever it's called, and we'll see who's the champion at the end of it. But first off, I'd like to wish our thoughts and prayers to the family of Scott Dennis, Greater Nanticoke head coach, and passed away a couple of days ago. Cool thing I saw that they are going to go through and play the game, which I thought that was nice that they're going to honor his memory and go play the game, and that should be a pretty good environment coming up. Definitely a sad thing, especially this close to the season. You hate to see it anywhere, but they will be taking action at home. That'll be a sight to see. Hopefully I can catch some footage there in what should be an interesting and fun atmosphere as Nanticoke battles North Pocono tomorrow night. All right.
Yep.
Let's get into it for our week one storylines. I have 3 here. Try to not go with the complete obvious ones. I know there's a big game that sticks out, I think, to a lot of people, but my first storyline that I'm looking for in week number 1. First off, before we get into that, where are you going tomorrow?
Yeah, so I've actually got 2 games this weekend. I'm going to be up right in practically my backyard. Saw this one when it came on the schedule and grabbed it immediately. Week 1, it's going to be Jersey Shore at Dallas. Should be a good one. And then Saturday afternoon, I've got Western Wayne up at Susquehanna Community.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Interesting matchups, and that Dallas Jersey Shore. Both teams want to go play in December. Dallas did a year ago, and that should be good to start the season. That's a real test. That'll really determine how both of those teams will go. I'm at Berwick again, as I am the entirety of the season. The last couple years, that's been unfortunate, but hopefully now with C.J. Curry coming in, they can go win some games as they take on Lake Lehman, which should be a pretty fun atmosphere in week number 1. Just considering that Coach Curry, per se, is back on the sidelines, and it should be fun. I've been saying all week that a lot of the Curry homers and truthers are going to come out of the den that haven't been there in a long time, and it should be a fun atmosphere at Crisbin Field.
It's going to be a good thing for Berwick, definitely. Mm-hmm. Definitely.
All right, let's get into our storylines. I have 3 storylines. My first one for week 1 that I'll be looking out for, Jaden Shedlock. He returns for Crestwood. They're taking on Wyoming area. I mean, I remember this kid as a freshman. He was a 1,000-yard rusher, and they had a dynamic duo in the backfield with Noah Schultz a couple of years ago and Jaden Shedlock coming into his sophomore year after he was a freshman, and they made it far into the state postseason. Had a good start to the season, then a shoulder injury tore out his season. He comes back, and Crestwood is a team that has kind of not been putting themselves in the upper echelon of this conference with the Dallases or Wyoming areas, but I think getting Jaden Shedlock back might be just what they need here, and a tough game against Wyoming area at home after Wyoming area lost the best offensive player or the best player in the conference in Aaron Crossley. This could be a game for Coach Ryan Arcangeli. We had him on the show last week. He was so excited about the team and where they've been coming in the offseason. And they get their start. They get their quarterback back, who is we like to say he's a dual threat quarterback. He's probably not. He's probably a run first, run second, run third, and then I'll pass fourth if I have to type of quarterback. So that is what I'm really interested for. What are you looking forward to?
Yeah, I'm looking forward where I'm going to be tomorrow night. I'm looking forward to see how Dallas handles things. The new playbook for prepping teams for the postseason is, and you're seeing it more and more and more, is schedule tougher competition as much as you can, right? And you see it. You see it with Delaware Valley every year, and it seems to help them. You see it now. You're going to see it with Scranton Prep this year. You're going to see it a little bit with Dallas, although they're still restricted. But they got this game with Jersey Shore, who's definitely not a district or conference opponent. So those are the type of games that even if you lose them, they pay huge dividends down the road. And I think Dallas, for me, the storyline is, how does Dallas respond week one against a tough opponent, having lost a significant portion of their offensive line, having to replace those guys, and also some big playmakers in Zach Pacheski, some other guys. It's going to be interesting. I think they're going to be good on defense, but it's going to be very interesting. So I'm very much looking at that. That's a big storyline for me.
Yeah, we see it a lot in college football as well. It's usually the teams that schedule tough out of conference opponents early in the season are well tested, ready to go. It's okay if you want to play, St. Mary's School of the Blind, but if you don't play the big dogs and you wait down the line, it doesn't pay off as much as these bigger schools. I know Texas is playing Michigan this year out of conference. Those are, even if you lose those games, you actually know what a real good team looks like, and you're not playing, no disrespect to like Kennesaw State, but they're not making the college football playoff. Okay, let's move on to my second storyline. And this one's a little bit interesting, and it might be a little bit of a head scratcher out the gate, but I got Wilkes-Barre taking on Whitehall. And I'm big on this Wilkes-Barre team. Jake Howe's coming back now for yet another season. And it's been a waiting game for Wilkes-Barre ever since they made the announcement that we're going to combine 3 different schools. This team, people thought maybe a little bit too highly of them. They'll be successful right out the gate, whatnot. It takes a lot to build a new program, especially when these kids haven't gone to school together and whatnot. You can't really say that anymore. They've been as a program long enough now where the excuses of, we got to get used to each other, blah, 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 throw them out the window. I mean, they have finally gotten to the point now, years into being a school district and playing, they got to go win finally. They've been getting the benefit of the doubt years on years now and have been okay, but they haven't put themselves in the contender area. I think they have a chance to this year. And listen, I'm a guy that there's a saying, the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. I don't live by that. I if I'm predicting Wilkes-Barre to be good this year, I'll predict him to be good next year and the year before, and I'll get him right one time. Hopefully, it's this week, this year against Whitehall. I think they can keep it close. I don't know if they can get the win. We'll come up on our predictions later, but how they look, I think, is the bigger thing in terms of, can they at least compete in a tough 6A in Pennsylvania high school football. Can they finally compete? I think that's a big telling, and that's my second storyline.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that one. My second storyline, and it's a little bit of a different one, but it's one I've been kind of waiting on for a couple of years, and it's Pittston area. Pittston area, another coaching change, replace some more kids, and so on and so forth. But I got to tell you that the Lucas Lopresto, going to be a sophomore this year. What an impressive, talented kid as a freshman on both sides of the ball. This kid is something special. He's in the mold of a lot of these kids that you look at him and think, he's a little small, he's a little slight, but you cannot possibly think that they're not going to be tough. This kid's tough. And you need a spark plug like that on your team, especially when when you've got changes in coaching and you lost a few players over the years. But I like him. I talked to Brody Spindler. That kid's a heck of a wrestler. He's the toughest kid on their team. He's going to anchor that line. He can even play line up and play fullback. And I think they've got a few things up their sleeve that they're going to try to make some changes and go for a few things. So I'm going to say that's my number 2 story, Pittston area. I think they may surprise a little bit this year.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I was talking last week on our Get Ready for the Season type of episode. There's so many teams in this Wyoming Valley Conference. You look at the top, you got Dallas and Wyoming area in the top dogs, right? There are so many teams that are kind of stuck in purgatory that they're 3-6, 3-7, 4-6, 5-5, 6-4. There's got to be somebody that elevates and becomes a contender because they've all been kind of stuck. That's Pittston these last couple of years, which give them credit because they were not even in the mid tier. They were kind of lower a couple of years ago, and they finally have brought it up to this middle tier, and that's fine. But now you got to raise it up, and a good chance to do it. And somebody in this middle pack in the Wyoming Valley Conference with so many kind of average teams, somebody's got to show out. Somebody's got to become a team that can make a contention, and good chance the Patriots have a chance to do it this year.
One last thing on them. They're all, you nailed it. They're always kind of just hanging out on that line, Mason. They're right on that line. And sometimes it's just that one player who's like, I'm stepping up, who's coming with me. That may happen this year. We'll have to wait and see.
I mean, especially in high school football. I mean, most teams that win games, it's no credit to or no disrespect to the other players on the team, but it's really a one-man show most of the time. When you get an athlete that well, especially we've seen down, Noah Schultz, we've seen at Crestwood, Aaron Crossley in the past. You don't really need all 22 to be high-level guys if you have that one guy. My final storyline, and it's going to be C.J. Curry coming in at Berwick. And this is a team that I was talking last week, and if you followed college football, they remind me of the Nebraska Cornhuskers, the Berwick Bulldogs. Okay? Great in the 90s, not good these last couple of years. Everybody pays attention to them because the brand, and all they talk about is what happened in the past, and there's nothing of what's going on now. But I think that could change with C.J. Curry, and bringing him in, being a player's coach, I think is the biggest thing because they have not really had a coach that has resonated with the players as much as C.J. Curry has. I went to Berwick High School. I'm now an alumni, which sounds weird from 2.5 months ago, of Berwick High School. But he was there as a teacher for a couple of years. All the kids loved him. I think that's the biggest thing is you got to want to play for somebody. And ever since C.J. Curry left, it's like, or George Curry left, it was just, you talk to somebody 15 years ago, coaching was not even in the top 50 things to worry about at Berwick. But when it finally happened, when he left, now it becomes a huge thing to worry about. And they've gone from Frank Sheptock, Carmen DiFrancesco, they've had Mike Bennett, just coaches that have not stuck with this team and been there for 5+ years. And at the high school level, you really can't build something in 2 to 3 years. George Curry, if I'm correct, I might look old, but I wasn't alive in the 70s, believe it or not. Didn't play, didn't coach, and have a great team early on. So you can't give up on coaches way too early. And I think you could look on it 2 ways here. C.J. Curry can come out and they could have a great start, and everybody's behind him, or it's a little bit lackluster early, and this team needs a lot to build up on, and the fan base, which I don't think will get on him as quick because of his last name and whatnot. But you got to go out and win if you're the head coach of the Berwick Bulldogs because of the brand, because of what they've done in the past. And I think it's just going to be a spectacle to see. I don't know if I have a complete prediction on how the season's going to go, but it's just something that I think haven't been this much eyes on Berwick in a long time, and I can't wait to see it come tomorrow night.
Nice. I'm going to go for my my third, and this is an interesting one, and I'm taking it away from just interactions that I had down at Wyoming Valley Conference Media Day, and that's the Wyoming Warriors. These guys, So they came into last year, and the way they felt is that nobody really respected them. And when I talked to Aaron Crossley just sat there and said, "We'll see you on the field." Like, and honestly, that gets tough. I mean, there's times I saw them against Scranton, and he was running down the field, had the ball, and he's hitting his chest, wanting kids to try to hit him because he was so tough and he was in it, and so on. And this is what happens down there with those guys. When I talked to them at Wyoming Valley Conference Media Day this year, I got the same feeling, except even like more upbeat. Mm-hmm. I talked to Chase DeSanto, who you saw committed, and that huge. I'm 6'2". He towered over me. I mean, the kid is just big. I talked to Michael Crane. That kid's tough. I don't know that I've met many kids that are as tough as him, and they just keep churning them out. And I think the year that everybody goes, "Oh, I'm in the area, oh, they lost Crossley, oh, he's going to take a step back," I don't think so. I think they're going to challenge for District 3A title this year. They are really, really good. So I would say on both sides of the ball, they're very good. And they got guys that play both ways and take it pridefully. I'm playing both ways. Come at me. I've got a lot more, and that's just Wyoming area. So watch out for them. Dallas got them next week after Jersey Shore this week. They're going to have their hands full. Crestwood's going to have their hands full Friday night, and anybody that lines up against these guys is going to have their hands full. That's my third.
Mm-hmm. With Wyoming area, you lose Crossley, whatnot. You don't need one player to replace a 2,000-yard rusher.
Right.
As long as you got 4, 5, 6 guys that can pitch in, you'll be fine. I understand you never want to lose a player of that caliber that got them to where they were, and then he got hurt in the Valley View game, and they weren't able to put up a single point. But at the same time, it's just not like the running game's going to become non-existent at Wyoming area. I think they will be fine. I'll just see. We'll just have to see, because they lose that alpha star power at running back. We'll see who emerges and becomes the guy at that Wyoming area backfield, because
he was so special, right? Like we haven't seen a guy like that in a long time. But I think you're right. I think they've got 2 running backs that are going to do just fine. I know they have a great tight end in Josh Marook, and I just think their quarterback is a year stronger. Watch out.
All right, let's get into our week 1 picks with some superlatives that will start with the toughest place to play on this list out of all of these games. I'll let you go first.
Yeah, so there's a couple of them that I think that are toughest places. I mean, I think you and I have traveled around a bit and seen a number of them. I would say honorable mention is Hazleton. That's a tough place to play. It is. Okay, that's a tough one. But I'm going to go with, and not just because it's right in my backyard, I'm going to go with Dallas. The reason I go with Dallas is the weather up there. It could be a nice, beautiful day. Mm-hmm. It's going to be windy. Nobody is able to prepare for it. It just always happens that way. And honestly, Dallas packs their side of the stadium every week, and it's a tough place to play. They get going, all those cowbells loud, the band's loud, the press box is like, it's a tough place to play. So I'll just go with Dallas. I know there's a bunch of them, but I'll take Dallas.
Yeah, it adds in 2 big-time brands, and of course, coming back from the state championship run that they had adds a little bit extra juice into it. I'll take an honorable mention too. I'll go with Nanticoke with the passing.
I agree.
I think that they could really have just a whole community town. Guys that wouldn't even think in a million years to go to a football game go to this one, home opener. I think they could make a lot of noise. But I'm going to go with Wyoming area and Crestwood. This has been a team that has made a lot of noise in the postseason, especially at home. I remember they had a game against Valley View in the snow. I don't think it's going to snow tomorrow night. I didn't really check the forecast, but it might. Anyway, week 1, Shedlock's back, a team that had a tough season last year, still fine enough season, but after a state semifinal run that they had a couple of years ago, and then they take on a big team in Wyoming area, a team that they have close ties with over the years. So I'm going to go with Crestwood as my toughest place to play. There's a lot of good ones on this list. Berwick sticks out with C.J. Curry coming in. You mentioned Hazleton, Wilkes-Barre area. We'll see what they'll bring to the table tomorrow night. But should be a lot of great crowds. You usually week one sees the most crowds out of anybody, and then it kind of dwindles off. So,
And I'll give you one more that we probably haven't been to. Maybe you have. And I know this just because I have it on good authority that another tough place to play is Marian Catholic, because those guys, they build, like they continue to load them up down there. And Hanover, man, they're gonna come in and, my gosh, look at all these people.
all right. So let's get into our week one picks now. So how we'll do this throughout the season, and then even if you don't join the show every single week, we still have the Google Sheets and whatnot.
Yep.
Each correct pick is just 1 point. So if you pick a game right, you get 1 point, of course. An upset pick has to be seen as an upset. You can't pick, a team that's 7-0 against 0-7. That's my upset pick, blah, blah, blah. It's got to be something that's seen as an upset. That'll get you a couple of points. And then your lock pick, the pick that you have so much faith in, you'll bet your house on, that gets you a certain amount of points as well. But if that lock pick is wrong, you lose points, which could determine and hurt you down the road. So let's get into it. With Nazareth and Hazleton, some big boy ball, high A football back there at Hazleton. The Hazleton had a great year a couple of years ago, 8-2, great defense. They have not had much success, of course, playing in 6A football, making it far in the postseason. Last year was a struggle for them, going 2-8. Listen, I want to be as fair as I can, but Nazareth is a different beast than Hazleton right now. You always give them a puncher's chance, but it might seem harsh. I'm going to go 42-7 Nazareth in this game. They're just a better team. You could sell, who's got more heart, blah, 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 but it's just they're a better football team. They're going to win this game tomorrow night.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Everything about Hazleton, when we talk to them, they're just trying to get some consistency with the players that they have with a school, and they are, for me, and I don't like to do this, they've been a disappointment. The size of that school, it is considerably big. You think Wilkes-Barre area is big, okay? They have like 1,000 boys. Hazleton is 1,700 plus.
Oh my goodness!
It's huge. They're a huge school, and you would think that they would get something more out, and they just don't. So part of that is just where they're at. The other part of it is, they had a couple of really, really good years where they were very consistent. They had a number of good skill players that were on the offensive side of the ball and also were good in the secondary. The problem is they haven't gotten those guys back. They just haven't gotten the consistency. They have some guys get hurt. I think that Nazareth comes in and wins easily. I'm going to say that it's going to be a 35-7 win for Nazareth.
Yeah. Pretty close. We both go Nazareth there. All right, next game, Whitehall, Wilkes-Barre area. Again, I mentioned it as one of my storylines. I don't think Wilkes-Barre wins this game, but how close do they play them could determine the season. I'm going to go 31-20 Whitehall in this one. An 11-point win for Whitehall, but Wilkes-Barre, you got to keep it close. That's a big thing, I think, for Wilkes-Barre. Get games to the fourth quarter, right? Because if you don't get games to the fourth quarter, you never really get big-time reps in big-time moments, and then big-time players are not able to make big-time plays because it's not a big-time moment. I'm never going to say the word big again. I said about 8 times in the last 30 seconds there. So I will go Whitehall getting the W, 31-20. I think Wilkes-Barre area, that could be a game where you check at halftime and they're tied or they're leading, but I think the prowess and skill of Whitehall comes through and they win by 2 scores.
Yeah, I think they're just a bit too much for them. It's a tough one. For Wilkes-Barre area, I like Wilkes-Barre area's chances to improve this year. I do. Talking to Jake Howe, I talked to Jake Howe at Media Day, and his experience, and he's just grown. This kid's worked hard. Eventually, it's going to pay off. When you work hard, when you work really, really hard, you just keep at it, and eventually things pay off. Unfortunately, I don't think it's this week. It's just Whitehall. It's too much. It's too much to bite off. I think you're right. I think at halftime, this is going to be like a 21-7 game. And I think in the end, I think Whitehall wins at 35-14. It's a bit too much. If I will say this, if you give me Whitehall against Wilkes-Barre area in like week 5, I think this game could be a touchdown game.
Okay.
Just because I think Wilkes-Barre area, and here's my X factor, Wilkes-Barre area. Coach Ciro Cinti is the X factor. That guy, like you said, blended 3 schools and did it in miraculous time. They were, first couple practices, you got kids from 3 schools fighting each other. By the first game of the season, he had that team together, and that team was together, and eventually that pays off. So, and I know some of the things that Coach Cinti does off the field, which are incredibly remarkable, which I won't go into here, but he is a first-class guy, and so I want to see them do well.
The big thing I think for Wilkes-Barre area is, can they survive the first 4 weeks? You look at the schedule, they take on Whitehall, of course, then at Stroudsburg is no easy test, and then home against Valley View, who's always great, and then at Dallas, who is in the 4A state championship. Can they survive? Can they get 1 or 2 wins there that can kind of keep the guys in it? Because if you start out 0-4, especially when you've had all of this off-season hype and believing and whatnot, you can't really build that up artificially. You can try, but the way you get motivation and want to play better is actually showing it on the scoreboard. Because the back half of the season, home against West Scranton, at Hazleton, home against Pittston, at Valley West, home against Crestwood, at Williamsport, they'll probably be favored in every single one of those games. Maybe the exception of Crestwood is close. So if they survive, they could be a dangerous team because momentum's going to hit them like that come into the postseason when they could be riding on a 6-game win streak. But at the same time, if you lose those 4 games early in the season, they might not be able to win the games later because the team's not bought in. So can they survive the gauntlet is the big question for Wilkes-Barre.
Final word on that, I asked Jake Howe that exact question because it's very similar, like we said, these teams saying we want to get better, so we're going to take the tough games early in the season and challenge our team and see what we can learn. And he said, absolutely, whatever happens in those games, we're going to show up, we're going to compete, and we're going to learn. And when we come out of it, we're going to be a lot tougher. And I loved it. I love that attitude. And I think that's really what they're going to do. They could lose 3 out of 4 or all 4 of those and still do well in the second half. So more to come on those guys.
All right, let's move on to Pittston and Mid-Valley, 2 teams that are kind of in that middle area. No pun intended with Mid-Valley, but you mentioned Pittston as a team that could break out and be one of those teams. I'm going to go Pittston here, close 28-21, touchdown game, late game in the fourth quarter, but I do think Pittston does prevail in this one. This is a team that one of these years they got to come out and they got to put together a team that could go win 7-8 games and really change the program and change the way people look at the Pittston Patriots. I think it does start with a week 1 victory at Mid-Valley.
I'm going to go the other way.
Okay. So you're talking about Pittston the whole time in the beginning of the segment, and then you're going to go Mid-Valley. Okay.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing about Mid-Valley. So it's the bad news for Mid-Valley is they lose their stud quarterback, Jordan Shimolevsky, who was a great player and lit up the dream game. I mean, that kid, they mispronounced his name like 6 different ways, and it was the same guy saying his name through the press box. The kid is amazing, and they don't have him. However, they got 10 starters coming back who have significant experience, and the thing that they have is they have a great running back. Okay, they have a great running back in Jacob Lesher, who is going to be really, really tough to stop. And they did well. Shimlevsky missed a significant amount of time. He broke his wrist and missed a lot of the year last year, and Mid-Valley still rolled and had a tough schedule. I think this game will be closer than people think. I think that the Mid-Valley people would say, oh, we're going to win this easy. And I think the Pittston people are like, I think we're in this game. And I think they're right. I just think they're going to come up a little bit short. I think this is like a 27-20 game. It's going to be close. It's a tall order for them. And it's tough, ready? Because Wyoming Valley Conference teams versus Lackawanna, always tough because you don't see each other a lot. And so you really have to rely on what you do well. And I know that in high school football, man, if you run the ball well and you can block well up front, which Mid Valley can, you're going to be tough. So I think Pittston loses, but it's going to be a close one. I like Mid Valley.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's move on to Wyoming Valley West and Williamsport. If you look at the records a year ago, this might not be the most intriguing game. Wyoming Valley West 1-19 the last two seasons, but they're building something last year early in the season. The problem is they couldn't stay in games at all. They were losing big, and it's something to lose close. You can actually go in the locker room and say, "Hey, we were in the game," But when you lose by 40, when you lose by 30, there's really nothing you can build up and work off of. So I'm going to have Williamsport in this game. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. Williamsport loves to throw the football around the yard. I think it's going to be 35-28 for the Millionaires. But Wyoming Valley West, the key is, can they stay bought in the entirety of the regular season? Because early in the season, they were able to get a Week 1 victory, which was incredible after an 0-10 season to start out 1-0 last year. Could this be a team winning 4 or 5 games? But I do think they fall, but I don't think they're going to be as bad as years prior. And it is a Week 1 loss for them, but I think with Paul Riggs coming back to Wyoming Valley West and what he'll do this year for the Spartans, it'll be a better year. Still not great, and I don't think they're going to be able right away right now to go into Williamsport and get a Week 1 win.
Yeah, I think Williamsport gets the win. I think, like you're right. I believe that the big thing for those guys, two things. One, last year, brand new head coach Bob Stelma, great dude. If you've never talked to him, do it. He is a great guy. You can't come in year one and expect immediate change and assistance and whatever. You got to get your things set up and what you do right. But I agree with you when you say Paul Riggs. The problem was they had the monster there last couple of years, Isaiah Cobb, but the kid kept getting hurt. He got hurt and got hurt and got hurt and got hurt, and that hurt them. It did. I mean, I won't say hurt again now because I said it 10 times in 5 seconds. But here's the thing, when you have a big kid like that who's that talented, and he's getting injured every time, like early in the year all the time. What it does is a bad thing. You don't win games, but what it does also is a good thing because it puts other kids under the lights and it gives them experience. So I like the fact that Riggs got some experience last year when Cobb was down, and I think that I think it's going to be a 28-14 loss to Williamsport. I think it'll be a little closer, and they're not going to get blown out, and they're going to come out of the game going, "Hey, we didn't get blown out." Maybe we're building on some more to come on that.
You mentioned Bob Stelman. I remember 2 years ago when Wyoming Valley West went 0-10. I was up there for a Berwick game, and this was a year Berwick was really not that good at all, and it was a mercy rule at halftime, which just kind of opened eyes of what how bad the program was 2 years ago, and a big telltale Berwick wasn't that good this year. They lost. Wyoming Valley West lost pretty sizably, but I think it was almost close to tied 7-7 at half. Wyoming Valley West and Berwick last year. So they're making improvements, and it's tough to come into an 0-10 team. It's a tall task, but Coach Stelma's done a great job. I know 1-9 doesn't seem like a great job, but there's a big hole to come out of, and they've worked up that hole, and I do think it's a loss, but this is a team that don't be surprised in a couple of years that they're kind of out of the grave and entering the kind of that middle tier with some of those other teams. And, once they get to the middle tier, make your way back up.
We could talk about them next year, maybe being a 5-win team. And that's all you need. That's a step. Get a couple. I would love to see them get, for sure, 3-4 wins this year. I just don't know if it's going to happen. Got to wait and see.
All right. Let's move on to North Pocono and Nanticoke. Nanticoke at home in this game. I think this is a low-scoring defensive game. I'm going to go Nanticoke 17-14, riding the crowd, riding the emotion, riding the motivation, and getting the win at home. This just seems like a can't-lose moment, with tragedy. When tragedy happens, it's a rally-around moment, and I think it'll help the team a lot with the ability to kind of get some grief off their shoulders and go play the game. And I think it is good because you'd have to imagine Coach Coach Dennis would want them to play this game, want them to go out there on a Friday night and play this game. So I'm going to pick Nanticoke 17-14, close game late in the fourth quarter, but I do think Nanticoke does win the game.
I would love to agree. I think it's a very close game. I think North Pocono gets it done though. The thing that happens, with these is, and I get the emotion. I picked this game before you know what I mean? I was looking at this one and I picked it, and I really tossed it around this morning and I said, should I change it? And my gut tells me no. Listen, I was down at Nanticoke. The atmosphere from when I went there, when I was following my team, when I was back in high school, was horrendous. It was a terrible atmosphere. Those people could not have been nicer last year. We went and saw Lackawanna Trail at Nanticoke last year, and it was just we had a good time down there. That community is really coming around. I think you're right. I think they're going to come around. I think they're going to fill that stadium. I think it'll be a solemn night. It's going to be a tough night. But it's going to be it's tough to do this. But I think I think North Pocono wins it 20-14.
Okay.
Just really close game. I agree.
I think it's going to be a close game.
Tight one.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Go either way type of game.
Yeah.
Let's go to Wyoming area and Crestwood. This is going to be my upset, and I don't know about the public perception. I'm going to pick Crestwood. I don't know how much of an upset that really is, but just considering Wyoming area last season, I still think they're going to be very good. And I think, if there was a spread and you could gamble on high school sports, which you can't legally, but if you want to come meet me in the bleachers at Crisbin Field, I'll give you a cup. No, just kidding. So I think Wyoming area would be a favorite in this game. Crestwood at home, after it's something when they've had these. Some guys have off-season games where they prepare themselves. They hang it on the board. This is what we got to come back from. I think Crestwood last year had an off-season season. They hang the entire season up on the board. This is the motivation to get back going, because it's the ultimate high of highs from Crestwood, who has had a good, solid couple of years, but then they reach the pinnacle. They win the Wyoming Valley Conference. They win their district title. They win a state playoff game, and it's the ultimate high of highs. They just had a freshman quarterback coming in. This team's got to get back to that, right? And then they get bounced in the first round of the postseason. So coming back after last season, I think, against the Wyoming area team, a tough team, two teams that are going to be in it late in the season, I do think Crestwood wins. I'm going to go 28-21. Of course, a big rushing affair. Jaden Shedlock comes back. I think he gets 2 touchdowns, and Crestwood wins by a touchdown.
I'm going to flip the script on you, and I'm going to go the opposite way, and I've got this one as my upset of the week. And if you had this one, I think Crestwood would be a -3. It would be a pick'em game because Crestwood's at home. I think it would be Crestwood -3. Here's why. I think Jaden Shedlock has a few more weapons around him this year. They're a little bit inexperienced, but they're going to try to get those weapons going so Jaden is not carrying the load. Speaking of Jaden Shedlock, I've interviewed him twice. He is the best interview I've ever done twice. He is the most polite, articulate young man that I ever met in any facet of sport as a sophomore last year. And he was very respectful, thankful for an opportunity to play football, thankful that he was back from injury, that they, whatever. Great kid. The problem is Wyoming area on defense is a pursue defense. They are all over the place, and they know what's going to happen. If 1 or 2 passes fall short, they know that Jaden Shedlock's going to run that ball, and they're going to be sitting there waiting for him. As fast as he is, they've got tough and fast kids. They stay on their assignments, and I think this is just such a close game. I like Wyoming area. Honestly, nail biter. I mean, it almost could go overtime. It's that close of a game. I really do. This is just such a great first week game to have. I like Wyoming area. I like Wyoming area 21, Crestwood 17.
Okay.
Just tight, man. Just tight.
And we were going against such a great line that Wyoming area has, and when you are really Crestwood, I don't want to be too rude, but they're really a one-trick pony with the running game. And what makes their passing game so successful is they do it maybe 3 times a game is you're not expecting it. And Jaden Shedlock can throw 3 passes and 2 of them could be touchdowns because they're blitzing 9 or 10 every play. But if the running game doesn't get working, they don't really have to respect the run all that much, and then you can play more to the pass, and it really just crumbles your entire offense. But the way Crestwood was able to win games and was just running the football, and it's just the kind of thing of, what we're going to do, we know what we're going to do, but can you stop it? And that's the big thing that Crestwood's built for the last couple of years, and we'll see against a great line on offense and defensive line for Wyoming area. Can they get home?
I'll say this. The other thing is Crestwood is starting to build an O-line again. The big thing they had 2 years ago was that O-line.
Yeah.
And it enabled everything they did. Now, they didn't have it last year, and that's what happened. But now they're getting something back. So let's wait and see. It's going to be a good year for Crestwood. I really think they're going to be tough. I think they're going to compete for a district title. They're going to be right there. Right at the end, man. You know it.
We had our season preview. I had Wyoming area and Dallas as those top 2 teams, but Crestwood was right there. I don't think they're there yet, but it would not surprise me if somebody from the future calls me up and says, "Hey, Crestwood's Wyoming Valley Conference and district champs." I'm like, okay, I could see that coming. It's not a wild thing.
No, it's not. But here's the thing with Wyoming area, they're down to 3A again. So the scary thing is, they're right. Like, wow, just at the right time, they just dropped that. They're right on the borderline of that school population. So it's like, wow, what's going to happen? So we'll see.
Let's go to our game of the week. I don't think anybody's disputing that. Jersey Shore and Dallas, 2 teams. Jersey Shore has been a team for so long. It is one of the big facets of Pennsylvania high school football. And Dallas, correct me if I'm wrong, the last couple of years they've been one of the facets of the Wyoming Valley Conference, but not necessarily the state. That changed last year, and they made it to the state finals. Unfortunately, ran into a train that was Aliquippa. But still, to beat Bishop McDevitt, I think was just one of the best upsets we've seen in high school football in a pretty good time.
I was there. I still can't believe that it happened. I'm dead serious when I say that. It was a sight for the ages. I've seen 2 games that Dallas played in the playoffs that were just shocking. Like, how the heck did Dallas pull that off? And they did. The first one was back in the 2019 run when they beat Emotep Charter. That was the best high school football game I've ever seen. That was so wild. And then the McDevitt game last year, just ready. And like Coach Manell said, special teams, and more special teams. That's what won them that game. It's insane. What a game. Oh.
Dallas had some games. I mean, I was at the Dallas Bonner Prendy game last year that was into overtime, and I got a little flame because my phone died because it went to triple overtime. My phone battery ain't lasted. I mean, I'm good for regulation, coach interview, go get in the car, charge it at 4%. I'm not built for 3 OTs on my phone. So I had to use my friend's phone. He has a crappy phone. But so the picture wasn't that great, but that was a wild game. It was Dallas had to score. They had 2 4th-and-goal type plays, and then the Bonner Prendy had a extra point. They got it, and there was a celebration penalty, which I'm not a ref, but
crazy.
Interesting
I know.
stuff.
Crazy.
So then it bumped the extra point down 15 yards, and he missed, and Dallas wins, and was able to beat Bishop McDevitt. Just a wild playoff run.
Unbelievable. Yeah, unbelievable.
It's kind of like, you say, oh well, they have more heart than us, but we're the small town guys, and we'll out heart them, and they might be more athletic. You're like, okay, cool, yeah, but they're still better. When it actually happens, it's like, oh, you were right. You don't usually expect it. It's kind of just like, yeah, okay, you got more heart, blah 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 blah. But they they put it to work last year, and it did work. But with that being said, Jersey Shore is going to win this game, 35-20.
Yeah, I think, there's a lot to be said again. Challenge your team early. Let's get going. I feel the same way. I think Jersey Shore is going to win. I think Dallas will learn a lot from this game. I think Dallas's defense is going to need to carry them early. That O-line, they've got some strong kids, but they need time to gel and get it going. The X factor is the two guys in the backfield for Dallas. It's Brady Zappe, who I believe only threw 2 interceptions the entire regular season last year. And what a huge step forward he took. And then Dylan Geske, who just takes over games. They wore people down and do it. They will not be able to do that as much this year because they don't quite have the line that they had. However, he is tough. I think he's good for another 1,500 yards or more rushing this year because he's going to run. They're going to let him run. I think this is just too tall of an order. I think Jersey Shore is just very, very good. They're one of the top programs in the state. I think they win it. I think Dallas will keep it a little closer. I think it's going to be a 28-17 game for Jersey Shore. Dallas has a really, really good kicker. Really good. And he's a game changer. I would say the only thing that wouldn't surprise me is if Dallas gets a big special teams play or two and keep close. So just watch for that. That's their bread and butter.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a pathway for Dallas in this game. Being at home off of one of the best seasons they've had in program history.
There you go.
I think the juices will be flowing week one. Week one is such a mystery, and that's when you want to play these big teams. When it's a mystery. When you really don't know. Right? We have a guess, and we could say this team could be good or not. It doesn't matter until you play the games. Right? So I think this is a much better matchup for Dallas now than, say, week 8 or 9 when both teams are hitting on all cylinders. But I think it makes it better. Still not enough to get the win. I do think Jersey Shore gets the W. Let's move on to Lake Lehman. Anyway, what are you saying?
I said I agree with you. I think they get it. It's just it could be a close one.
Mm-hmm. Let's move on to Lake Lehman and Berwick at Crisman Field. I'll be there tomorrow night. The Curry era, volume 3 now. His first stint, and then he came back, and now CJ. My goodness, they're building a Curry empire. I'll call you in 50 years when his grandson's the head coach, and we'll
hit me up. I'll come down and watch. Let's go do it.
Lake Lehman's an interesting team. Berwick had such a different outlook this season than they're going to have it from last season. They don't have to play the big dogs in 4A now. They're moving down to 3A. They don't have to run into the teams that they're used to, that they haven't had success for. And Berwick has not won a district title since 2013. You're going on now 11 years. Dallas has won it multiple times before them, or since them. Valley View's won it multiple times. I even think Crestwood's won it multiple times since Berwick has won a district title, which is just bizarre to say. Going down to 3A, they will have to run into Scranton Prep in the postseason and Western Wayne and some of these other teams. But week 1 here, I do think they get a W. This has been a team that every year seems like it's such a senior-heavy team. They lose their starting QB. They lose their starting running back. They bring on 4 of the 5 offensive linemen back, which we'll see if they can focus on that, because Berwick's identity these last couple of years, hey, we're going to run the ball. They couldn't really run the ball that efficiently. So it's one thing having identity. It's another thing putting it into play. And I think they'll have a better chance putting it into play this year. I do think they win the game 28-14.
Yeah, and I'm going to go that way too. I'm going to go a little bit stronger. I think Berwick has a little bit of momentum because of that. I like Berwick to win 28-7. The problem with Lake Lehman is they're struggling, and they haven't been able to put anything consistently together. And to open the season on the road with another Curry head coach, I just think it's too much to overlook. And I think Lake Lehman gets beat pretty bad. And it wouldn't surprise me if it's a little bit more. But again, Berwick, I think they need to establish that identity. I think teams that are looking for one, the simplest way to go, unless you have a stud quarterback, is to get in there and run the ball. And with the line that you have back, they're running the ball, and I'm not sure Lehman can stop them. So I like 28-7.
This is such a breath of fresh air because they played Southern Columbia last year to start the season. Columbia 2 years ago to start the season. Southern Columbia 3 years ago to start the season. And they played Valley View week 2 a lot of the times. So they were in an 0-2 hole already, and it really didn't matter what you did the back half of the season. So I was talking with CJ Curry, and he said it was a big thing to not not get into a hole already, because
Yep.
they did a fine
Agree.
enough job some seasons where they were getting to like 1-3 and then they bounce back. But it's better to start off as a good record and not even
Yeah.
have to rely on a bounce back of what they've had. And believe it or not, Berwick has not had a winning record in 3 years now.
Wow. Crazy.
At any point in the season, not even a finish of the season.
Oh
At any
man.
point in the season, they have never
No, I
had
think that
a winning
ends. I
record.
think that ends tomorrow night.
Hopefully, we'll have to see.
Yep.
I'm not hopefully. I'm not biased. I like all teams the same. Let's move on to Lackawanna Trail and Tunkhannock. Lackawanna Trail 1A, deep into postseason once again. I don't think this game's all that close. Classic Lackawanna Trail game defense, and they win it 35-3.
Yeah, I think Tunkhannock is gonna get blown out. It would not surprise me if you look at this at halftime and it's a 14-7 game.
Okay.
I think Trail will open it up and really roll in the second half. Trail, I'm going to tell you right now, is one of the top 2 or 3 teams in our area. They are very, very good. They're very well coached. Steve Jervis really has it going there. The way that they run their offense is very deceptive because they run the wing, the wishbone, and all that stuff. And they have got guys that they have to replace. Well, they're going to replace them. It's just like we talked about with Crossley. They lose Lucas Gumble at running back. Well, guess what? They've got 2 to 3 guys, including a speedster and a young kid named Isaac Ryan, that you want to watch out for. That kid is really fast. We saw him last year against Nanacoke. Boy, is he quick. They will get it done. They are a tough team, and they are the most complete play together unit that I saw last year. They play so well together as a team that I don't think that they think that anybody can really beat them. I think they win it easily. I think it's going to be 14-7 at halftime, and I think it's going to end up being 35-7.
Okay.
Michelangelo. And EJ will be up at that game doing the video coverage.
Week one is always that kind of. Not many teams blow teams out early because it's when you play a middle of the season game, you have the motivation for the last couple of days. These guys been ready since the season ended, so it's very even early on, and then the one team usually just comes ahead. So I think, like you said, we're going to see a lot of games at halftime, or whatever game you're at, close games, and then you'll check the score and like, wait, wasn't that 14-7?
Right? What happened?
42-7. What happened?
Yeah.
So
Now let me tell you one thing about Tunkhannock real quick though, because I've got a hard stop at the bottom of the hour. But I'll tell you one thing about Tunkhannock. We saw them down at Wyoming Valley Conference Media Day. Those boys are big. They're bigger kids than I've seen before. So I think eventually they're going to get it right. They're a team that could move up a little bit and might do a little bit better than people think. So just not this week. I think Trail's so good. They're so good, man.
Let's go to Hanover and Marian Catholic. Hanover gets a lot of players back. Unfortunately, doesn't matter for me. Marian Catholic wins, I think, 35-14.
Yeah, I think it's going to be even further out than that. I think the problem with Hanover is it's the same thing. They're just they didn't look good. Saw the scrimmage against Northwest, and Northwest is not real great. Hanover can't stop anybody. I think this is going to be a very, very bad blowout because Marian Catholic is good. They're tough, and they're playing at home. Hanover has some problems with their stadium, and it's just lead paint and whatever else is going on. And the kid is nice. His name escapes me right now, but they're starting a freshman quarterback. Hanover is, and you got to keep that kid upright and let him, make some plays. But Marian Catholic is on a different level than these guys are. It's going to be 49-7. Marian Catholic.
Okay.
It's going to be bad. I'm sorry.
Is that your lock pick?
No, it's not. Trail's my lock pick.
Okay, Trail's your lock pick. Okay.
Yeah, Trail's my lock pick. They're just so good, man.
My lock pick is the last game, Holy Redeemer. I do think they lose. 0-10 season a year ago. I don't think I'm going too much out on a limb here. I do think they lose. Maybe a little bit closer. I'm saying that, and you're going to hear the score and say, well, it's not really close. 49-14. I do think Holy Redeemer scores a little bit, but as close as a 35-point blowout as you can get.
Yeah, I think it's the same. I think that the Redeemer just doesn't have it to really play
Hmm.
Nativity. Not that Nativity's great, but I think they're considerably better than Redeemer is, and I think they roll. I think it's gonna be 35-7.
Okay. So that's our picks. Let's get one final segment here as we'll end the show. What is the storyline? The main talking storyline is the game's end as the week storyline. What's the big thing that happens? I'll start, and I think it will be Jaden Shedlock with a pair of rushing touchdowns, and Crestwood beats Wyoming area. I think that's the big talking point over the week. His performance coming back, and I do think Crestwood wins the game, as we said before. But I think that is the talking point around the Wyoming Valley Conference. Week 1, Crestwood. I think you can look at the headline and say Crestwood's back would be my headline. So that's my storyline for week 1. I'm putting you on the spot here, but what's the big newspaper headline storyline that we'll see in week 1?
Yeah, so I think that I think you've got the good game there, where a lot of the storyline is that Jersey Shore Dallas is gets the headline as far as that. I think I'm going to say that it's Dallas falls short. Coming back off a state championship season. In any other week, it's easily the Crestwood Wyoming area. And I think you could very well be right, and I could be wrong on my pick there, but I'm going to stick with Wyoming area, so I won't hedge it. So I'm going to say that the storyline week 1 is Dallas hangs tough but loses late to Jersey Shore. That's going to be my headline.
All right, that'll do it for the week 1 predictions. We'll be back next week. I'll be back. I don't know how frequently you will be joining us on the show, but I'll be back hopefully boasting on my good picks. Hopefully I don't have a losing record. I have a pretty solid enough record. I thank Jared Samuel for joining us. PA football news will be all over the state tomorrow. I'll be in Berwick. Jared will be in Dallas, and this should be a fun one. High school football is back August the 22nd. Soon as it came back, we will just be talking about how it left. But until then, thank you everybody for listening, and have a great first High School Friday night.
Thanks.